Tammi and I met about 3 years ago now. I was in my last year of ministerial school, and Tammi was just starting. And we met at a retreat. And I knew right away that this woman was a woman of power. This woman was a woman of consciousness. This woman was a woman of stature. And when she spoke, though she didn't speak very often at that particular retreat, but when she spoke, it was just like, right? And I was like, wow, okay, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to listen. And over these past 3 years, we've had the opportunity to get to know each other a little bit better, and then even more so, we had the opportunity to sit together in San Diego earlier this year when I facilitated the first ministry class. She is a powerful presence. You can feel her when she stands here. She's got some really kick-ass shoes, too, I just gotta say. Loving the shoes, always do. She is a member of the Apache Nation. She identifies as a wide variety of things, wide variety of people, but none of those things define her, because they would be limiting her and limiting her consciousness. She is a judge at one of the reservations in New Mexico. She's coming to us all the way from New Mexico just to be here with us this morning. Normally, she would have had a class or something else that we could have put this together with so that she wouldn't have to make a special trip. But that's how special you all are as well, that she wanted to come here and be present with you, so that she flew all this way to be here with you. So please, give her a round of applause, a warm Las Vegas, a warm Riverside welcome. Where did that come from? A warm Riverside welcome to, please, Miss Tammi Lambert.
It's such an honor to be here. One of the things that Reverend Jeffrey, and thank you for inviting me. When Reverend Jeffrey invited me to be here with you all, I've been so excited about it because little known fact, I actually went to La Sierra Academy, and this has been kind of my stomping grounds back in the day. So it's been about 30 years since I kind of hung out in this area of Riverside, but it felt like I went on some sort of hero's journey, and here I am again. So I'm just thrilled to be here with all of you, and so thank you for your warm welcome. So we're going to be talking today about communication, the listening of a mystic. And the idea is that we will be reminded of the beauty and the power that's available when we listen from a place deep, deep within ourselves. And we've realized that we can transform ourselves and transmute the energy of the world just in our listening, just in our consciousness. But as I was thinking about this talk, I was doing some visioning. And so I was doing a visioning, and usually sometimes, I don't know if you all do a lot of visioning in your community, but sometimes you get a really clear image, and then other times it's not so much. This one was so clear. And I'm watching the waters, and up rises a kraken. Anybody know what a kraken is? A kraken's like the sea monster, and it's got the tentacles and the spikes and the big mouth. And they used to say Norsemen used to say that if you ever saw a kraken, you were never coming home again, right? So there's this huge, and it's doing its monster thing, right? And I'm just noticing it, and it's, rawr. And then it's one by one, the scales of it start to fall off, like the arms fall off, and then layer by layer, it starts to peel away until there's nothing but this beautiful child in robes with these gorgeous eyes. And I started noticing that its skin and its clothes flecked with gold. And then that image, I was just with the eyes of this child. And then the child evaporated, and there was this bright light, this bright star. It was brighter than the sun. But instead of the experience you have with the sun where you're kind of not shielded away, the light drew me in. And I sat in my meditation in that divine light and had my entire being covered with this divine star. And I was like, that's my talk. Because that is what we're actually talking about, is this communication. So often when we're engaged in what matters to us in the world, we're engaged in who we are put here to be. We have to facilitate a communication, right? There's some sort of a conversation that goes on. So often when we're engaged in these conversations, what the conversation looks like is my Kraken is talking to your Kraken. And they're talking to each other, right? And so I'm like, well, what would it actually take for us to really dismantle what that Kraken is and why it has a reaction? Why do I have a reaction? Why am I not in response? Why am I straight up reacting? And I'll tell you, it was a hard week for me on the news. I'm just going to put it out there, right? I'd turn on the news and I'd hear the congressional hearings and this and this and that, and I had to turn it off. I could feel my solar plexus start to knot up, and I was just, and my father said he was screaming at the TV, right? And I'm sure there were TV screens, innocent little TV screens, all over the country being screamed at because of what's going on in this country, right? So my Kraken's screaming at the TV, and but on the other hand, I say I'm committed to shifting the energy of this planet. So what I started to do is I said, you know what I have to do is I have to start, what does it take to start peeling off the layers of this Kraken, right? So, you know, for those of you who've ever had to deal with a professional, when I used to have a law office, I used to have my little Kraken out front, right? So if you want to talk to me, you know, you had to go through my legal secretary and you had to make an appointment, and there was all these barriers. You couldn't just walk in and talk, right? Probably you experience it when you go to the doctor or something, right? Well, the experience of that barrier to communication is all of that stuff that people have to wade through before they get to the real you communicating. So before you actually talk to me, you need to talk to the Kraken staff, right? You need to make an appointment and you do all of this. Well, what does that look like? Well, so often when we're talking to people, we're listening to them through our past. We're listening to them through the past experiences of things that I made up about people, maybe even about you, based on something that happened in the past. So what's important is to be able to just release the layers of that, right? And so, you know, even just coming into town, as I was driving in here from Los Angeles, this morning I was remembering all these stories that I had about how I came up and who said this about what, and, you know, what people said about, you know, my hair or how tall I was or whatever. And I make up these stories about that's how people are. So I start to listen to people through all of my stories. I start listening to them through all of these decisions I made about you and about me, and you never really get here. So how am I going to be an agent of cause for change in the world if I am just the Kraken, right? And the thing that I noticed wasn't just that you're talking to mine, but I'm talking to yours. So what I noticed when I was looking at the congressional hearing issues, I started noticing that I started feeling fear. I started feeling anger. I started feeling powerlessness. And I realized that one of the things that happens is that when I am in reaction mode, when I'm not fully communicating from that God self space in me, what I'm doing is I'm allowing myself to be at the effect of circumstances, and I allow myself to honor the power of something other than the God in me. I'm honoring something that is not who I am. And you know what? You cannot worship God and mammon at the same time. You have to either be in the place of spirit or you are in the space of being in fear. So I look at that Kraken. I started looking at conversations about racism. I started looking at conversations about what's going on in the world. I walk around in the world as an African American woman. I walk in the world biracial. I walk in the world as a Native American person. I walk in the world as an educated person, a woman married to another woman. You name it. If you wanted to be mean to somebody, I probably got a reason for you to be triggered. And I'm over 50. I'm sporting my little gray hairs, right? So yeah, I got And I started looking at pictures that were triggering. I was looking at a picture from 2 years ago from Charlottesville with the young men with the torches screaming racial slurs. And I looked at those pictures, and I felt myself go in reaction, my solar plexus, and I felt constricted, right? And I was in the impact of it, and I was looking at that, and I said, what can I do in the face of that hate? And then I realized I was just looking at a Kraken. I'm just looking at something that I have given power. And when Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, talks about we don't acknowledge evil, he's never said it never existed or that we don't have an experience of it, but that it's here because we are here for our path. It's to propel us on our path, to forward us for something. So it depends on how I'm looking at it. If I'm looking at this racism and this hatred and every kind of ism you can imagine, and I'm saying, oh, that's the truth, I'm giving my energy to that. And I make it real. And so I looked at that picture and took on within myself, what is divine presence saying for me and to me now? What is divine presence saying? What is the truth of that? What is the truth of that? Because if someone's going to talk to me and I'm going to bring on that I am able to transmute, that don't mean just change the world. I don't mean transform the world. I mean transmute it to a higher level of energy to which it has been heretofore unknown. I'm talking about creating a world that not only works for everyone, it is empowering everyone, that we have a place where children are free, that they can eat, that every being, every creature is blessed and honored for who and what they are, which is an emanation of the divine. We're talking about playing a big game. And I can't play a big game if I'm sitting up here with my Kraken talking to your Kraken, talking about the same thing. Because you know what we're going to get when we do that? Exactly what we have. Maybe a little worse. So I'm called to something higher. I'm called to something deeper. I'm called to something wider. And I have to take on, what does it take for me to stop talking to that monster and talking to that monster like it exists? Because what the truth of that is that when I speak to that with the word of love, when I speak to that in the space of consciousness, when I speak to that from the space of God in me, that thing does not exist. As Ernest Holmes says, there is no spiritual law that justifies it. And so it has no power. So if I am feeling fear in the face of children in detention centers, if I'm feeling fear in the fact that statistics say that hate crime is rising, if I'm feeling fear, they deported and detained 600,000 people and 7 children died this year. If I'm feeling fear in the face of that, I need to go into treatment. Because what that situation is not greater than my God. It is not greater than my God. It is not greater than the God in me, because who I am is brought to this planet to be a powerful force for good, and that is who I am. And anything that I believe to the contrary is an absolute dereliction of duty. It is an absolute dereliction of who I am. So I take on listening to my body. I take on listening to my body's responses. Listening. Do I feel that in my solar plexus? Do I feel that in my throat? And then I touch it. And I know that I have a body, a physical body. I have a mental body, I have an emotional body, I have a bliss body, I have an energetic body. I call on all my bodies to be in alignment with the perfect and divine order of the God. Everybody take your hand and touch your chest. I am in perfect divine alignment with God. I am a self-loving choice. I am my self-loving choice. I am listening to the call of spirit in me right now. The love in me expands, it flows, it supersedes anything that is, and I am living and walking in that divine mystic light. That is who I am right now. And so every moment as we listen to these things, right? And sometimes when we listen to something and, you got your thing going on and somebody got their thing going on, we might be projecting our stuff onto their monster, making their monster scarier than their monster actually is, right? So what we do is we find a way to listen to our hearts. We have this unique and powerful message that says that we are one, that every creature, every being, everything that exists, that ever has or ever will exist, is existing inside of the mind of God, and that there is a powerful good in the universe and I can use it. So I can look at you, I can look at every person, every being, and know the truth about who you are, because I know the truth about who I am. I know the truth about where Spirit has brought me. And there is nothing greater or more powerful than that. So what do? So I start doing little tricks for myself whenever I feel myself being impacted. My daughter, she's 24, and she always says, Mom, don't get up there and just talk at people. Tell them how to do it. Like, everybody has heard over and over the thing. We don't want to hear the thing. We want to know how to do the thing. So whenever I am in that space and I see myself yelling at the poor little TV, what I'm taking on is I listen for where in my body am I feeling tight. I listen to my physical body. I listen to my emotional body. And see, all of these bodies are connected. We're all inside of this divine blueprint. Right? Our physical body is a divine blueprint. Our emotional body is a divine blueprint. And there's a cheat sheet called this physical body that I can check in with. So am I feeling it here? And I just call on Spirit. Spirit within me, Spirit all around. Surround my solar plexus chakra with divine light. I release anything unlike the highest vibration of divinity. I release it and I let it go. And I call on this space in me to be healed. I call on this space in me to be clean. I call on this space in me to be fully energized so that my will to do good in the world is powerful. So that my will to do good is not just a thought, but it becomes a powerful action. It becomes a powerful action from a place of healed, complete, divine love, power, and connection. It stops being a reaction of my cracking to somebody else's cracking. It starts to become a mystical revelation every time I check in. When I'm making a choice, I'm communicating with myself. If I'm listening to you, bring your energy to your heart. If I'm listening to you, and my heart starts to constrict, then I'm going to say, what is my self-loving choice? Am I listening to you from a place of opinion? Am I listening to you from a place of judgment? Ernest Holmes said that opinions are just a waste of time. Am I listening to you through my opinion? Because my opinion is just a thought, and it's just a judgment. Am I listening to you from my judgment of what I think you should say? What if in any communication I could tap into my heart and do a self-check? This is when I know I need to do a self-check. What did she say? Right? Like, oh no, oh no, oh no. What am I doing right there? I'm in judgment. I need to self-check. Did my heart chakra just constrict right then? Or am I open and bounding over with love? Now that doesn't mean because people can say some outrageous stuff. Yelling, send her home to people, congresswomen of color, is not something I want to hear. And yeah, I have a judgment about that. So how do I hear something I don't want to hear and still be in a place of love and power? See, the difference is that often we have a confused detachment with resignation, and they're not the same thing. right? Detachment is this idea, this spiritual principle about we're not going to be sucked into being attached to person, places, things, items, da-da-da-da-da. We're not going to confuse God and mammon, right? We're not going to confuse circumstances or people or money or what you have or whatever. We're not going to get attached to that, right? That's what detachment is. Resignation is, I don't want to inflict my spiritual progress with this negative conversation. It's the difference. Because when we ignore what's going on in the world that does not work, we are thwarting our own spiritual progress. Because we are brought into this time for such a time as this. We are brought into this space with this message for such a time as this. It is our divine karma, purpose, plan, dharma, all of that is for us to be here in a place of power. And so there's nothing that can come to your life or my life, but that it's a lesson for us. I started taking on this thing, the opposite of paranoia, it's called, I think, pronoia. That everything that happens is happening for me. I start going back in this revision of my life, and I say, oh, I remember when that divorce happened. Oh, I was so torn up at the time, and no. But actually, come to think of it, it was actually because it forced me into something different. I remember when I had a job and the contract got lost, and no, and I was just so upset about losing this job. And I started saying, all of those people that I thought were my enemies, that were working against me, they don't know that they are unwittingly the agents of the divine propelling me forward in my plan and my life plan. And so I started blessing them for their contribution to my growth. And what ended up happening is I ended up getting another job where I worked half the hours for twice the pay. Because I shifted how I listened to what was going on. I shifted the whole idea that there could be a power against me. I created that since God is one, there's no such thing as a power against me. There's just catalysts for my power to unfold. It's all about my unfoldment. It's all about me. Thank you, Spirit. So when all this stuff comes, and it looks like a big old scary kraken, what does that mean? It means that I got a bigger thing to do. It means that I step up my spiritual practice until I can see what looks like reality, what looks like what's going on in Capitol Hill, on the White House, on the anybody house, I can look at that and I can look at it without fear. And I can stand in front of any White House. I can stand in front of any crack house. I can stand in front of any kind of house and sit there and declare the truth of divine God in me is what is so, and you are an illusion. Because that is the spirit of divine presence. So I give up that there's such a thing as anything for me to be in fear of. I give up that there's such a thing that I need to protect. I give up believing in the power of that. And how does that help me in my communications? Because if I can listen to you no matter what you say, it could be horrible. And I can look at you and I see the kraken disappear. I see my inner child show up, and I see spirit, only spirit. And I can listen to you from a place of only spirit. I can be with you. I don't have to avoid you. I don't have to protect. I don't have to defend. There's nothing to protect. There's nothing to defend. There's only God. There's only this purity of this communication. It dismantles the power if I can be in any communication. You know, there's a story, one of my favorite stories, about Buddha. And he was at a lake, and he wanted some water. And he tells one of his devotees, you know, I'd like to get some water. Can you get me some water? So the guy goes, and he looks down, and an ox cart had just gone through the water, and it's all filled with the mud and stuff, right? So he goes back and he says, I can't get you water because it's too muddy. He says, well, just let it be. So a little while later, he goes back, it's still too muddy. He was like, just let it be. So third time the man goes, he gets the water. He had been sitting for a while. He comes back and he has fresh, clear water for the Buddha. And the Buddha says, see, look how powerful you are. You made that water clear. And the man said, I didn't do anything. He said, yeah, you did. You let it be. You let the sediment settle. And so often when we're engaged in social activism, when we're engaged in spiritual activism, we think that the way to survive it is to kick up the water, right? My kraken's bigger than your kraken, right? We think that's what we need to do. When in actuality, if we are able to peel back the layers of all of that communication, peel back the layers of the judgment, peel back the layers of our thoughts, peel back the layers of our opinion, peel back the layers of our fear, we can be with any communication and it'll be like a settling of the water. And we will be a space of peace. We become a space of peace that passes understanding because we've given up resisting the world. We've given up resisting what we do want and what we don't want, and we're just with it. And where is divine power found? Within us. In that still small voice, in that quiet place, that place of the Most High that lives as me. And the more that I'm still and I give up being in reaction, the more I am able to access that infinite power of spirit. I'm able to access that infinite wisdom of the divine. I'm able to be the channel and the creative force that brings a new way of looking at these things. I stop looking at these things as problems, and all I am is the flow of the divine. I sit in the seat of the Most High. The Ark of the Covenant lives within me, and in that space, I am a cause for transmutation for the world. I am a space where there is love for everyone. I am a space where power lives. I am a space where this entire world starts to shift the way that it thinks because I have elevated the consciousness of the entire cosmos with my being. And if I think that I am anything less than that, where do I need to go? Into treatment. Because the only reason we have a problem is God has given us within us everything we need to solve it. That's the only reason it exists. The only reason why there's someone that looks like an obstacle in front of you is because there's something for you to complete so that you can be clear about who you are. So that you can be clear about who they are. So that we can be clear about who we are as a community. That we as a community of light, we as a community of unbridled love, that we as a community that gets the concept of wholeness, that we as a community that inside of that oneness and inside of that wholeness, we can declare with our world that this world is a better place. We can declare with our world that this world that we are powerful beyond measure. We can declare with our powerful voice that there is a place where love shows up. There is a place where children are fed and we have clean waters, and everyone that we care about, everything that we care about expands to an unaccounted for measure. And then we stop being a reaction and we start being who we really are as powerful creators. I'll tell you a story about my wife. She's not here. This is the first time I've done a talk when she hasn't been here. And I've done like 100 talks. She has a commitment to dolphins and whales, orcas. She doesn't believe that they should be in captivity. And we've been together 15 years. As long as I've known her, this has been her big angst, right? If you've seen the show Whale Wars, she actually gave Captain Watson the idea to start that show, right? So she's been in the thick of it. It's what she cares about. And she's also had it that I'm going to wait until I retire in 4 years to actually get involved. So we're sitting in prosperity class, and we're doing meditations on what does prosperity mean to you. And she says, prosperity to me means getting actively involved in this work. So in my meditation, we have classes in San Diego. In my meditation, I had this vision of us praying. We're pranic healers, right? So it's like Reiki, you generate energy through your body, through the chakras. I had this vision of us going to SeaWorld and just praying for the orcas. So I said, honey, we're going to have to go pay that admission, and we're going to go in there. And we're not here to play. We walked in there on a mission. We're not even buying water. Until we had our 17-year-old child, and I thought she would be embarrassed, right? We went to a place in there where there was kind of like a wrought iron fence, and then right beyond that was the tank where the orcas were. So we stood there, and I mean just like this, and started praying, directing this energy, just bringing the divine light to have this energy heal this situation. And we're directing divine energy light into the waters. There's 3 orcas in that tank. The first one comes up, it turns on its stomach, on its back like this, and it literally floats right there in front of us while we're praying. That one swims away, the next one comes, turns upside down, we continue the pressing. That one swims away, the third one comes, same thing. May you be blessed. May every creature, every being be blessed beyond measure. May every person that works here realizes their highest self. May they be blessed. May we all be blessed. Every person that gives you medical care, every person, every trainer, every person that's selling popcorn, every person that visits here, may they be blessed. May you be healed. May you know that people care about you, that you're not lost and forgotten, that you as a spiritual being matter, and be comforted. So we did the healing with the orcas, and then we went for the orca show, and we were doing the same treatment. And I thought my 17-year-old would be kind of like, oh God, these people are so embarrassing. That's actually not what happened. She was in tears, like, I can't believe what these orcas had to go through for them to have to do these tricks, and they must have families that love them and miss them and things like that. So we started doing that. And what happened is it just culminated into, so what we had to do in that space was to give up that a conglomerate like SeaWorld is bigger than us. We had to give up that there was some huge issue that we couldn't address, that prayer can't address. It was interesting because I told you how the orcas had swam upside down. When they were doing the orca show, they said that when the orcas are getting medicine or they're getting treatments, that they have been trained to go upside down and to receive the treatment. Yeah, so they were getting a treatment. What shows up is that I don't know how to dismantle a system that people are benefiting from the oppression of other creatures. But I know one thing how to do. I know how to do one thing. I have one job, and that is to pray, and that is to be consciousness. That is to cause something. And right now, she's with the Lumi Nation over in Seattle. They have over 120 different canoes that have come in from all over the world, from Alaska, from Hawaii, from down south. There are people there from New Guinea, where they're all there in collective prayer for the oceans and for the creatures in the oceans and for the families in the oceans, because in the Lumi belief, they believe that their ancestors are incarnated as the orcas, right? We have the ability as science of mind to incorporate all people's beliefs and spiritualities and cause ourselves to be something greater than we are. And we have the opportunity to give up listening through our Kraken. We have the opportunity to give up listening to someone else's Kraken as if it has any value. And we can actually take on our own power in our own way. And we'll start seeing shifts, miraculous shifts, in the way that the world is working. It will be something that we haven't thought of yet. We may get out and march. We may get out and picket. We may, do things we need to do. But what we're seeing is that when people are engaging in social media, that 50% of people, there was a survey that said 50% of people who are engaging in social media are finding people who have different viewpoints, And 15% of people have lost a family member or a close friend because of different ideologies. So there's a lot of ideologies going on in the world. How do we be with all of these different ideas and still retain the love? And this is how we do it. We do it by knowing our oneness, by going inside, by consciously leaving behind our judgments, by listening to our body as we're listening to each other. Now, we're going to be doing a workshop today at 12:30, and I'm going to have a number of exercises on how we can deepen our listening. And I hope that you all will stay or come back for that, and we'll go into, like my daughter says, the how-to, tell people how to do the thing, all right? So until then, I'm going to say namaste. And I'd like to invite the practitioners and the core council to surround the room. I know that there is a power, an absolute divine consciousness that lives right now in this moment. I know that this Mother, Father, God, this Creator, is all consciousness, all energy, the stuff of which all things are made, have ever been made and ever will be made. I know that this divine consciousness has been called by many names throughout all time. And I call this divine spirit right now, knowing that it is love, power, peace, joy, knowing that it is this peace that passes all understanding, knowing that I am one with all of that. And I cast aside any illusion of separateness and fully embrace this oneness with the divine, knowing that as I am one, everyone here without exception is a part and parcel, one with me, one with God, one with all. I am one with God, one with all, and with everyone here. And in this space, I declare a place of peace. I declare a peace that passes all understanding. I release any barriers between myself and my consciousness and the true spirit of who I am. I release any limitations, any barriers. I take on only the full-fledged power of the creative force right now. It is the flow, it is the power, it is the energy right now in this space. It is love so powerful that anything unlike it, that appears to be unlike it, falls aside as the illusion it is, and there is only love standing. And I call this peace right now for this community. I call this power right now for this space. I call this unfettered love to burst forward into this world, into this community, bursting forward from each of our hearts and join together, swirling together in a mighty chorus of love. And I know that this is power. This is transmutation, that we are even now causing a world that works for everyone. Even now causing all the areas in our lives to be in complete fulfillment, in a complete realization that nothing is true except this divine love. And so knowing this is so, knowing this blessing resides with each of us, and that we are this beacon of inviting light, that we are this beacon of protection light, that we are a beacon of all that's good. I am so grateful for this word, for this community, for this life, for this beauty. So grateful. So grateful. And in this gratitude, I release this word into the universal law that only says yes, yes, yes. And so it is. Thank you.